Welcome to Living Consciously TV, coming to you live from our Denver, Colorado studios. Also, we are streaming on YouTube Live, as well as on Hangouts and at ConsciousEvolutionMedia.com. I'm your host and moderator, Coach Steve Todd, and also the founder of Conscious Evolution Media. Our theme this evening is very exciting: how to be kind. What an incredible theme to start the new year with. I'm very excited. Happy New Year to everybody. Our guest, our cast, and all of our viewers. Our guest this evening is Taffy Black. She's joining us from that beautiful, wonderful, friendly county up north, not county, but country up north called Canada. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, from Canada.
I just called your country a county. Maybe you should be part of us.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm from a town of 2,000. It might be a county.
Awesome. So. All right. And let me introduce the rest of the cast. We have on the very left-hand side, Jamie Lerner, who is joining us from that wonderful and windy city called Chicago. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's so nice to be back.
Awesome. It's great to have you. And next to Jamie is Linda Dyer, who's joining us from that continent where the kangaroos are roaming 24/7. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, it's a hot, so the kangaroos will be hopping.
A beautiful blouse.
Thank you.
Makes you very alive. All right, and last but not least, we have Dr. Rosie Kuhn with us. And she's joining us from that place where Jimi Hendrix was born, and I don't think any more introduction is required. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Good to have you all. You guys. So how to be kind, and I love this theme because. Well, for numerous reasons. One is it's something that I like to experience as much as possible. People being kind to me, and I'm being kind to them. And I'm wondering, in terms of our guest, Steffi, how did you end up here? Because you work with corporations as well as schools. How did you end up in the conversation and the energy of kindness?
Well, it might be too long a story to tell you from childhood, but I'll start with how I came into it as an adult. I married a Jewish man, and we have Shabbat. And Shabbat dinner was a thing we did on Fridays, a lot of Jewish people, and I wanted my children to think of it as something that they connected to. And I started asking them to do something kind on Shabbat. So instead of it just being a dinner we did because we were a Jewish family, it became, I would like you to go to school. They were 3 and 5 at the time. I'd like you to go to school and do something kind for somebody else. And they were like, okay, well, what do you mean, Mom? And I'm like, you know, a child drops their book, just pick it up. Just pick it up. Don't walk by. Just pick up and give them their book. If somebody looks sad, just go over to them and ask them if they're okay. And so at dinner time, we would all report in, my husband, myself, and my kids, on what we did kind that day. And it was an intentional act of kindness. The studies have shown intentional acts of kindness promote pro-social behaviors. And I started doing this years ago. My favorite website was randomactsofkindness.org. And a Hebrew teacher overheard me, this was quite a few years ago, and said, I always hear you asking your daughters to do something kind when you've come in and dropped them off on Friday. Could you come to our class and talk to us about kindness? And as a life coach, a career coach, you know, doing things that about core values was something different, but actually emphasizing the character trait of kindness was something that a light bulb went off in my head, and I could have said no, right? I could have said, well, what do I know about kindness? Well, how dare I go up there to this grade 1 class and talk about kindness? And I thought, what do I think is so important in my core? But kindness from childhood, right? And I ran home and I went and did all my research, and I got a small little bit of advisors and teachers, and I put together a mini curriculum and went in and spoke to a grade 1 class years ago. And from there it just spiraled into what an impact it can make. And it turned into a strategic plan of intentional acts of kindness for schools and for corporations.
Wow.
So I hope that answers the question as an adult.
Fantastic.
As an adult.
Today, so I intentionally had this intention for the day today to be in the energy of kindness, and I have to report to you that many rudeness things happened to me today.
Ah. That didn't make you feel very kind.
So I was tested all day a number of times because you know, there's just a lot of stuff that happened that was really more on the negative side. And what I'm experiencing, and I know all of you know a lot about this, is that and I have it now differently than I used to have it. So negativity is really not so bad. Me in the energy of kindness, and I was kind, and I responded in a kind way, which blew people away. Like they were going like, I don't believe how you could respond in such a positive way based on what just happened. And that's why I'm feeling, I used to have it differently. I used to have it that negativity is not a good thing and we need to get away from it as soon as possible, although I still believe that, is that when something negative happens to me, I'd like to distract myself as soon as I'm able so that I'm not dwelling in it and just be connected to what I really want. Does any of this make any sense? I feel like I'm rambling.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense, Steve, and I think the difference between you being kind and or reacting to what they were presenting is the difference between responding and reacting. And responding takes time, a little bit of time. It takes time to think like you had to. You thought about how can I respond in a positive, kind way. And whereas reacting is that you then put yourself in the same position as them, you're no different, and nothing gets solved. It's just a reaction. I close the door, I slam the door, I walk away, I put my thumb up, whatever the act is. Or how can I, if I take that time to say, how can I respond to this in a kind way? Because this isn't actually my stuff that they're going on with, it's their stuff.
Yeah.
So really what we're talking about is connection, because when we're connected to ourselves, we don't take anything personally, and we're able to just respond from the place of our connected, loving self, which is most usually kind. So I think the connection with ourselves is really the key to kindness.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, too, is, I mean, I think of it as a sense of grace when we can stop and pause, and like you said, Steve, see this negative situation from a positive reframe so that we can come to it with grace. And as you're saying, Jamie and Linda, that it's them that's having the issue, and so if you can, in a sense, be in that state of compassion and grace, then the kindness is just automatic. It's effortless.
That's right. That's right. And 50%, you know, Marshall Rosenberg, he's head of nonviolent communications, says that 50% of conflict resolution can be resolved if we radically listen to what someone else is saying, even when they're aggressive. Like you're in a library, you work at a library, and someone comes up and says, I can't stand this catalog system. This is horrible. Well, the librarian wants to go, because I just spoke to a group of librarians, wants to go, how rude. You know, can't you, you know, I'm working hard. How dare you talk to me like that? Whereas if she actually responds with what he says and says, I understand it must be frustrating. Must be frustrating, meaning that I understand you're having a bad day.
Yes, that's very disarming. Very disarming.
Right. Our egos want to say, listen, buddy, you know, I'm having a tough day too. Can you speak a little politer?
Don't you know who I am?
That's right.
Have you heard that one?
Yes, totally. But if we can respond with the egos out of the way, right, as the 4 agreements said, and Linda addressed this, don't take things personally and don't make assumptions. We don't know what's going on in that other person's world. We just don't. And if we can respond, as you said, we can acknowledge the negativity and the irritation, but we can respond with, as you said, Rosie, too, grace, right? With grace.
Absolutely.
And that's not weakness. That's not weakness. You know, good leaders can be accountable and respected and still be kind.
And you're empowered then to keep your state. So, in other words, nobody is now, I'm not allowing anyone to affect me without my consent. So that person who's getting off their tree isn't going to affect me with whatever that rant is. So how can I keep my state, feel good about what I'm doing? So I absolutely agree with what you were saying, Steffi. However, I don't use the word understand because I think sometimes that even irritates people further, like how could you understand? However, if you use the words like respect, agree, or appreciate, all those words equal love. I respect that you may be having a hard time right now, and, not but, and then continue. And, you know, I'm wondering what part of this is me. Or is there a way I can assist you through this?
Yes.
Linda, and I wanted to say, Linda, that what you brought up about self-empowerment is so huge here. And I'm all about self-empowerment, my book, Self-Empowerment 101 and all, but it's like we have an opportunity to empower ourselves to choose to be kind, to choose to listen, to choose to see things differently, so that we choose to not take it personally. That moment of self-empowerment when we choose differently makes so much difference within ourselves. So it's not just about placating or, you know, keeping the calm, but it's about what happens inside of us when we choose to act in kindness. There's something amazing that happens when we empower ourselves to choose that. It's phenomenal. So I'm glad you brought that up, Linda.
You know, I have a 3.5-year-old granddaughter, and we talk so often about how the most unkind people need the most kindness. And she gets it. I mean, she gets it. It's so intuitive to her instead of being counterintuitive. And it's interesting because if you wait to have that conversation until the child's 5, it becomes more and more counterintuitive. But children are at such a lovely time in their life early where they really can understand the power of kindness, and there is no principle, and it's nice to see. It's nice to know too that can be taught at such an early age.
Well, don't you think, Jamie, that also kids, because I have 5 of them, 5 grandkids, that don't you think that my experience is that they are connected to source?
Absolutely. There's no doubt
because
about it.
they are.
They are.
Of course, all of this stuff is easy for them.
Much easier than it is, I think.
And, and people, you know, have been asking me, like, how do I handle my relationships with my kids? And the answer nowadays is so simple. You know, I just tell people that if I'm not connected to source, I don't talk to them.
Yeah, that's great, and I'm sure they really appreciate that, because when you're not connected to source, they probably don't even understand what you're saying anyway. So.
They're not even listening.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that addresses, Steve, the comment, and Linda, you've heard me say this too before. Is it kind? Is it helpful? Is it necessary? Before you speak. Imagine how powerful that is in most conversations or situations when you want to react to something, right? I think it's very powerful.
And when you're in that frame of mind, it even affects the way you do your emails. It's not just verbal communication. So you could be writing something in an email and you think, is this effective? Is this necessary? And back it. And so this isn't necessary right now. Am I writing this to voice an opinion that nobody really cares about anyway, or is this really, is this going to be fun? Is this going to be necessary? And you really, when I first started this, I really started to change what I wrote as well as what I spoke. So you think a little bit deeper into the responses that you can give on every form of communication. What I wanted to say that you both brought up, both you and Jamie, was what I think is profound about what you're doing and what Jamie's doing is the introduction of this to young children. Because, when we get those neurons and dendrites already formulated in children copying other people's aggressive behavior or the way to do something, I mean, why do we have the bullying? Why do we have? Because they had to learn it from somewhere. So imagine learning how to be kind, learning how to be happy, learning how to have fun in their world as part of that neural network that becomes an entrenched habit in their life. And it's really quite profound that we can do it at such a young age and have such an amazing, if people understood the power of the brain and the neural networks, they would really get how powerful this is.
That's, Linda, exactly. And the pro-social behaviors can be started at a young age. If schools take programs and start them young and have it consistent. We can talk about kindness. I've gone in and done little speeches and little workshops, and they were nice, but there was no impact. And then I stopped doing that until I went back and did more research and got advisors, and the studies have shown intentional acts of kindness for 3 kind acts a week for a month can change the pro-social values of a classroom. It's that consistency of action. Now, so when a school calls me, I say, listen, do you want to make an impact or do you want a nice little talk? Right? Let's go. Let's have a kindness ambassador. Let's have a team. Let me talk to the teachers about looking through kids they have found challenging through the lens of compassion. Because we often stereotype people we've had for years in a classroom or in a workplace. We look at them in that bracket and say, they're like that. Instead of through the lens of compassion and kindness, well, maybe I've changed and maybe they've changed, right?
Yes.
So those intentional acts of kindness that can help the children very much to what you're saying, Linda. And bullying, the big issue's been around bullying, but if you don't even talk about bullying and you bring in the kindness, it's amazing impact that can happen.
Are you familiar with, in Canada, there's the Earth Rangers?
Yes.
Is a conservation organization for kids, and my 5-year-old grandson, who's right now in Red Deer, Alberta, is like very keen on becoming an Earth Ranger so that he can take care of the planet, and it's like beyond my comprehension. It's like what each of you are saying about that level of care that's already being instilled in him, and that desire to really participate as an Earth Ranger. So bravo for Canada for having that. That's awesome.
Thanks, Rosie.
Yeah.
And also that would come from the leadership. It's interesting. I notice at some schools when they will try to implement a plan like an Earth Rangers, like a kindness ambassador, if the leadership isn't as respected, it does not happen as well. It's very interesting. When I've worked with different principals and different leaders, if the teachers aren't brought in and if they aren't included and if the whole community isn't brought on to have their own voice, then it becomes the principal, once again, who has no connection with some of the staff, telling them to do this kindness program. Yes. Instead of, let's bring everybody together and have them tell us why kindness is important. So if I go to speak to middle school, I have them break up the school in different age brackets. I'll give them kind ideas, and then I'll say, present to me when I come in how you can make your school a kinder culture. It's not me telling you. You guys are the experts, right? I'm just coming here to tell you the statistics, tell you what it can do, and be your cheerleader, right? But when they tell us what makes a kinder environment, they want to do it much more.
And you bring in that kindness culture. Like, talk about that a little bit. What's the culture of kindness, Stephanie?
Sure. First of all, once again, as I just mentioned, it starts with the leadership. It starts with the leadership having a vision that everybody understands. So when I worked at St. Peter's Health System almost 2 decades ago, I had a wonderful leader and CEO and president who I still remember the vision, to be the leader in providing a continuum of service and care for older adults and the chronically ill. So I was there at that healthcare system to serve the chronically ill and older adults. And I was part of the leadership team. But I knew what the bigger picture was. Mm-hmm. So that's a leader who says, I want you all to know the vision and connect to the vision. That's a leader who also encouraged us to have core values. What did we stand for? What did our organization stand for? So kind cultures understand that very well. For instance, there's Steve Schroeder, CEO of Package Works, interviews employees who he feels are more caring. That's his number one criteria for hiring. It's not the smartest person he hires. He hires the employee that he feels is going to fit into his culture of caring accountability. That people like working there and that they help each other out. You know, even Google, which has its own empire, they have a day where staff can come up with their own creative ideas. That's a form of kindness. They're empowering each individual to have a voice. Gmail was created from one of their days off to just be creative, right? Starbucks CEO made a mandate that by 2025, he wanted to hire 25,000 of the youth culture that wasn't hired as much as everybody else, that didn't go on to a higher education. And that was his mandate. And he also vowed that when he would hire by 2025, 25,000 of these underserved, undereducated, he put them through school, but they didn't have to stay and work for Starbucks. Now that's a giving culture.
That's great.
Right? There's a bigger vision.
Unconditional kindness.
Yes, yes. So does that answer your question, Rosie? I hope.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I think that we think of, coming and having you talk about, how do we decide what's an act of kindness, or how do we do that? But when we're talking about generating a culture of kindness, whether it's within a school or an institution, a corporation, a county like Canada, or a community or country.
Oh, wow.
But I also think
the
it
country,
helps the family too, because if children are talking about it at school and they bring it home, then it allows consciousness in the home that maybe wasn't there before. And then the parents, hopefully, they can embrace the concept that children are trying to implore at school and, create a more kind environment at home. And
yeah, Jamie, I love that. When I work with a school, I'll ask the principal, if you don't mind, would you send a kindness calendar of ideas home to the families?
that's very nice.
Really? And I say, yes, involve the families.
Yeah.
Involve the families in this month of kindness. So I put together a calendar where they get 3 once again, working to what the statistics have shown us, right? The intentional 3 kind acts a week for a month. And so I'll give a family an idea board, and they can do their own thing. It's just like the school can, but it gives them a template, as you say, Jamie, to get involved in it with their children.
That's awesome.
So
it'd be good to get some testimonials from that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Something you said earlier, Steffi, that we kind of skipped over,
Sure.
and I haven't gotten over it yet. So you said.
Let's get to that.
And it was actually brilliant, and I just want to make sure that the viewers get it. So I'm bringing it back in. You said that the way. And I was actually thinking about bullying as you brought it up, and I was going to ask you a question about bullying. And what you said so brilliantly is, don't talk about it and don't give it any energy.
No.
That's how you handle it.
Yes,
And I just want to make sure everybody hears this, because I feel that that's brilliant. Because just look at what we have done with all this other stuff, like declaring war on this, declaring war on that. And none of that stuff works. We're actually making it grow even bigger.
Very, very good point, Steve. Very good point. Because what you give energy grows, right? And so if you empower people to just simply be kind, because it's within them anyway, it's in the human genome to be kind, right? Our ancestors survived by helping each other. So people want to be kind. I'll give you an example. I went into a school, And there was a boy there that had 2 assistants with him. So we can guess that there were some issues around him being at the school and needed maybe some extra guidance. And I was doing the part where I give them a journal ahead of time, and I ask them to write one kind action they've done that day and share with me when I come to do the workshops. And this boy came in, and they all had the journals, and he said out loud, he says, "Is this going to be a boring talk? Is this going to be another boring talk?" And I said, "Oh, I hope so." Well, I said, "I hope not. What's your name?" And he goes, said his name, and I said, we'll say Jerry. I said, "Jerry, nice to meet you." And I said, I said, "What was yesterday?" And he goes, "Oh, it was a politician." And he went on and on and on. And I said, "Jerry, I'm so sorry. I'm going to do my best to make this a great workshop for you, because you know what? You are part of it, and I can't wait to hear what you did in kindness." So he started off kind of sitting there like this at the back of the class and da-da-da-da-da. And then at the end, when I have them break into project groups and come up with an idea, I give them a template. He before he went to leave, I had him come. He'd been in one of the groups. I said, Jerry, come on over here. I want to see what's in your journal. And he showed me his journal, and he showed me a kind act he had done with someone in the playground. He'd picked something up for them, and I said, "Wow, you really know what kindness is about, don't you?" And he beamed, and he said, "Yeah, I do. And I do it more this month. I'm going to do it more." And I said to his EA, I stopped the person taking care. I said, "Could you give me an update on Jerry? Will you tell me how the month goes?" And I didn't hear, because I'm sure the EA was too busy. But I bet you Jerry, who sat at the back of the class with his arms crossed, and may have sometimes had a harder attitude in class, ended up being the biggest proponent in some ways of kindness, because he was given the template to be that kind. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Very much so. Yes. Very much so.
And that made him feel important. He now had a role to play that resonated with him at some level, and he feels really important that he can go out and make that change. Whereas before they all focused on what he couldn't do, now they can focus on what he's actually doing that's positive. So he doesn't probably need it. They probably saved a lot of money getting rid of those people that were looking after him.
Well, the whole reason, though, to be kind is because it feels good. It's not even about the other person.
That's right.
It feels good to be kind.
Yeah.
That's so much part of our nature. So,
Right.
One of the biggest elements of when I do coach trainings is to teach coaches how to acknowledge individuals for tiny little changes and shifts that are occurring within the individual. And for me, it was one of the biggest practices of learning to acknowledge people, not compliment them, but like you did with Jared, is to see something that gets usually unrecognized. And in our speaking, we can do this 100 times a day if we choose to acknowledge people for some element of their being that shows up when they do. And it's such a delight, and like you're saying, Jamie, that it's like it feels so good to shift my orientation that way, the level of empowerment, but also it's for me that I do that. I mean, I love sharing a sense of delight of other people's their presence in my life. That's the delight. They get to know how lovely it is, but they get to feel good in themselves. But I get to be the one it's happening inside me. So it's so important for us to it's not just the act of doing, it's the act of being in our word, in our languaging, as well as in our listening. Kindness comes so much in the listening of and being present to people.
The other thing that we've done with our children and grandchildren is never prompt them. As children, we've never said to them, say thank you, say please.
Right. Yeah.
Answer what your name is, and we've just allowed them to just be genuine in their response or not. And it's never been about being embarrassed or most parents are very concerned that their children are embarrassing them. So there is so much prompting going on, and then children learn to, instead of being genuine communicators and communicating from how they feel, whether it's to be thankful or not to be thankful, they're always looking outside of themselves for the prompt. So it's been wonderful to see how children can really self-actualize and come into their own simply by allowing the adult to respond for them. So to just say thank you or to say please instead of saying to the child, what do you say? Every time I hear that, I think to myself, oh my gosh, this is so, non-genuine.
Yes.
Are you just wanting a child to go through the motions, or are you really wanting them to know what it feels like to say thank you and to be thankful? And it's an interesting opportunity to consciously choose how to parent a child or a grandchild or a student, and just allowing the person to navigate from within instead of from without. So yeah.
From that authentic expression, the
Exactly.
the impulse to be kind, to say something, to listen. Yeah.
So Jamie, hang on for a second. That was absolutely brilliant, because I just had that conversation the other day with somebody. The conversation you were just having with us, which is, don't you feel that when parents don't make a commitment to making sure that their children are connected to source, to their beauty, if they're not supporting them in that, and the parents themselves are not connected to themselves, then what's left? The alternative is to teach them about all the rules that they have and they made up and what the world has made up.
Well, I think it's very difficult for parents who are not conscious as people to be conscious as parents. It's very difficult. I mean, you only know what you know. So I find this all the time, that I'm around other parents who are constantly saying to their children, say thank you. And what I tend to do is turn to that parent and say, your child is always saying thank you. It's not necessary. You don't need to remind him. Children always are much better not in front of their parents. And it's kind of a way of letting the parent off the hook. And it's such a relief for the child. The child is like, oh my God, they take the deepest breath, because clearly, whether they feel thankful or not, if some parent is constantly telling them what to say, they're not going to want to say it whether they feel that way or not. So it's a way of kind of intervening when you can that lets everyone off the hook, and certainly gives the child an opportunity to start looking within instead of without. I don't really believe there's much out there anyway. I mean, I believe that we have everything we need to know within, and we just need to be reminded that of that. So
that's just to offer that. That's one of the reasons I wrote Cultivating Spirituality in Children, the book that I did, is because we need that ability to reflect as grown-ups who we be inside, so that we can be that reflection for our kids, that we don't have to tell them what to do or what to believe, but model that from, as you're saying, Steve, be the source, be connected to source in our being, so that we reflect that constantly. And we sometimes think that it's rhetoric, or isn't that a nice idea? But it is essential in our well-being as earthlings. It really is.
And to tell those children that they always know what's best for them. Well, what do you think? Well, what do you think? What do you think? As opposed to what we think. Who cares what we think as parents? It's more important what our children think. So
beautiful.
Well, I also came to the realization, Jamie, that after 4 years of doing this show, if people are tuning into this show that are not conscious awake, they're going to have a tough time staying with it. And I just can't worry about that anymore.
Yeah. So, well, it creates curiosity. Like, what the heck are they talking about? I gotta tune in.
What is this foreign language? How come nobody talked to us about this?
As a child, I still remember being told by my parent to say something, and I was so against it. The butcher apparently wrote on the bottom of the paper, "Your child was whatever." And so my mother said, you've got to go and tell the butcher you're sorry. I thought, what am I sorry for? I didn't do anything.
Good question.
So I still remember going down to the butcher and saying, my mother said I'm sorry.
And that was very authentic of you, Linda. That was very authentic.
Because even as a child, you get the understanding that that's not how I felt. I didn't do anything to justify your reaction, or in fact my mother's need to reprimand me. And however, that's how you both feel. And it was sort of coming to a light, even as a young child, we know this stuff. We know how to be kind. We know how to, and I think sometimes we're organized by our parents to do it in a particular way that they were raised by.
Right, the imprint. Yes, instead of genuine.
So, Steffi, I do a lot of work these days in corporate America, so I'm going to be somewhat selfish with this next question. So, how would you like kick off a kindness program in a corporate settings? What have you done?
What have I done? Well, there's many different ways. Let's talk about Random Acts of Kindness Week, the International Week of Kindness coming up on February 14th. So one thing that I do is I get corporations involved and I create a tailored plan with them. So for instance, one of the companies I work with is called Sight by Norax. They're a technology company on the east coast of Canada. And they are they have a different culture, right? It's a technology culture. They work a different way. So I asked the leader, who is a former Olympian CEO, and I said, appoint me a kindness ambassador who you think would be to work with this group, and I can help them tailor a plan. So we worked out that they would film their own videos doing a kind act because they love technology, right? So they'd have a high five your coworker day. They had a high five day, and they all had fun. They had giggles, right? Laughter is part of kindness, right? You're smiling at your employees, and they all filmed themselves doing a high five and taped it. Then I said, listen, what about going out and giving free coffees out at your local Subway? And you have a sign, and you know, they came up with the idea too. I just gave input. So they created a sign saying, you know, Sight by Norax wishes you a great day. Have a free cup of coffee on us. And they got up at 5:30 in the morning and 6, and all of them had their track pants on, and they took a picture of themselves out there with the high five, and they did it that morning, and they felt great. And then I said, what have you done for your suppliers? Like, how many suppliers do you have? Oh, we have, 25, 30, and I said, how long have you been working with them? This long. And I said, what about a card from you guys telling them why they're great? And the guy goes, let's hand deliver it. Let's hand deliver that card. And I said, great. If you're willing to get out there in the streets and hand deliver it, go for it. Once again, it's authentic to them. I'm just the listener, as you say, Rosie, the radical listener. What can work for your culture? And so they went out, they took pictures, they posted on social media with all their suppliers. They surprised them with this kind action and a personalized note telling them why they appreciated their business for the last 10 years. And then they put it all over the social media. So that's an example, right? That's just one company that works to their culture. I work with a local gym called Judy's Group Fitness. Amazing woman, just an empowerer, warrior, martial artist, and just always positive. And I know these women love her. So I said, what would you like to do with me? What can we work? She goes, will you come and kick it off and talk to them a few facts about kindness? It increases, our serotonin in our brain. It slows down aging, reduces free radicals and inflammation in the body. As I said to you, it's in the human genome, right? It creates a ripple effect. I do something kind for you, Rosie, Linda, Jamie. You want to do something kind for someone else. And you too, Steve, in that county over there. I haven't forgotten.
Canada County. So this could be actually something that we could manifest. Just keep talking about it.
Exactly. So there's all sorts. You see the example of just these two small companies, and then the library system. I did a keynote and a presentation. Then I broke up the 64 employees into 8 groups, giving them ideas, but saying it's your culture, your librarians. You know what will work in your culture. I ask you to create 3 kind acts, each group, 8 groups of 6, and I'm going to break it down into a calendar for a monthly plan. And then they each had branches. So there's political challenges with how they work. And so I just had a call this morning on the outcome because I'm all about lasting impact. So I called them and I said, what went well? What didn't work? What do you want to do next? You know, and okay, we'll do the kindness month again. Great. I said, great. But what didn't work? Well, we're branches, so they needed to take ownership for each branch themselves. Okay, well, let's appoint a kindness ambassador for each branch. So the list goes on and on. The list goes on and on.
So this sounds awesome. It's a little bit too complicated for me. Can we come up with something like really simple? Like,
Yeah.
give me some simple thing that we could do, let's say tomorrow,
Okay.
and have some incredible results.
Okay. You have people you've worked with on the show for many years, right, Steve?
Oh, tons.
Right. Why could you not write a note and write 3 kind things about one or the 3 people that you work with, or a supplier or an assistant, and tell them 3 kind things that you know about them and that you appreciate about them, and surprise them with that. And you'll be amazed at the reaction you will get from them. And I'm not talking saying your outfit looks nice today. That's fine, and that's lovely. Linda looks lovely in the red, as you said. But more about...
You know, it's interesting that you're bringing this up, but I have to say, Steve, you probably don't even know this, but you have always acknowledged us every single show with kindness, each and every one of us at the end of the show. That has been such a natural thing that you have always done from the very beginning. So it just is, it's just naturally happening, at least on this network.
You've just got to pretend that the people in your corporate are us, Steve.
Yeah, maybe that's it. That's your natural state of being.
Right. So Steve, how
Well,
did
yes,
that
but
feel?
you see, in the real world, like, so I have to, you know, I'm just being moved right now. Look at my body to share this with you. But so I had this really weird experience today when somebody at in this corporate setting, basically the words I want to use is he, in an open forum, belittled and also were in a way that were more committed to making the person feel small. And let's see what other words I want to use.
Humiliated?
Pardon me?
Humiliated.
Yeah, there was some of that. Yeah, and you know, I just was in the I just was in the present receiving this, and I'm going like, oh my God, that's very interesting that somebody actually is capable. I know what the word I was looking for, just actually being rude.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going like, well, what went through my mind is I can't change this person. I don't have that kind of a magical control. So I basically, what I said to the person is, because he stopped for a moment after he did all this. So, oh yeah, I'm just going to be truthful with you and tell you exactly what he said. And it was directed to me. And so, in order to do this right, I have to tell you, and I probably shared this on this show before, if not, I shared it on other shows, that since I've been involved with this corporation, I started the very first day, and I told anybody that came in contact with me, or I came in contact with them, I said this: have I told you today that I love it here?
Mm-hmm.
And this has been going on now for 7 or 8 months,
Mm-hmm.
and it has taken off. It's like not only people believe that I love it there, but now they're starting to say it themselves.
And now
So
you
here's-
actually believe you love it there too, right?
One of the managers actually stood up and said, and he didn't mean it as a joke, and he said this to me. He said, "But Steve, do you love it on your payday?" And because he makes a lot more money than I make, and I know exactly how he meant it, because he has done this before. And he paused for a moment, and he said, well, I am being such an a-hole. You know, he actually acknowledged that he was an a-hole. And I basically said to him, well, you can make it up for me, if you like, by coming over here and giving me a hug.
Oh,
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's how I responded.
How did that go?
He didn't come over.
Oh.
But that was okay with me. It was okay.
Yes. Yes.
One of the things that I have found really a huge practice for me, because I grew up in a family of 9, and so getting any attention was a good thing, you know. So whatever you did, you go, hey, I just did this, aren't I great? So I learned about secret kindness or secret charities in the Sufi tradition. Is you do things that are kind and don't tell anybody. You don't tell social media. You don't tell anybody. You do it as a spiritual practice, as far as I was concerned, and don't tell anybody you're doing it. And that was huge in terms of doing it for being kind and caring for the right reasons and not for the wrong reasons, not to get the accolades or here's a great promotion opportunity for us or whatever it could be that we get something. It was a great...
Like I need credit. I need credit for this.
Right, or social, or, you know, let's put that out on social media, or whatever it is that we get something, as opposed to I get it because it's my act of kindness, not for not to, you know, tell somebody so that they see how wonderful and kind I am. But that place of that secret charity or that secret kindness is huge practice for really building the truth of why am I doing this kindness piece, just for myself, and that connecting with source, if you will, coming back to that connection to source. So
but I think, Rosie, what stems from what you're saying is that there is always going to be something amazing coming back to the person, because that's the law of attraction. So whatever I do out there, I remember sitting on a plane once and I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw on an event. It's going to be next to nothing or just the cost of the venue, maybe $5 a head, $10 a head, whatever. And I'm going to just see what did they learn from my last course and was it powerful for them, and and I was basically giving away my services for free just to find out how was it for them that they were able to make any improvements in their life or not. And so I designed this event. I went down to Melbourne where I was running it. I only had 130 people in my course and 250 people turned up.
Wow.
I had double the number of people turn up, and this was a gift for me. I doubled the number of people turned up. I didn't even really know what I was going to say. I decided that the universe would guide me, and that I just said, okay, let's have a look at some of the people that were actually in the course. What would you like to say to the audience that changed for you since you did this program? And there were some amazing people stood up and told some amazing stories. You know, on that night, I sold out all my product. I was rebooked with 80 people into the next program. And it was like, oh my gosh. So what I'm saying is the law of reciprocity or the law of attraction actually says that, ironically enough, from these acts of kindness, you automatically, in some way, will get a benefit. It will benefit you, whether it's just a feeling that you feel great about that, or whether it's a reverberation, that the kindness stems both ways, that you end up, somebody may, as you said, the follow-on, somebody may do something really nice back to you and you weren't expecting it, etc. The other thing I want to say was with your leaders, that we need to understand that if they're not living their material, and I'm really big on that, so I remember being taught by people that were teaching us about, you know, not so much being kind, but, you know, this becoming conscious, etc., etc. But when I saw them off stage, they weren't the same people. And it really threw me. It's like, you know, you can say, oh, yeah, I'm going to be a kindness ambassador, or I'm going to do this. And you get to the school, and that leader, when they're not teaching, is actually goes home and is not living the material at home or in the community. So
Yes.
that's another thing that I liked about your authenticity of who you choose as a leader, that living our material as an act of kindness ambassador is extremely important, that we think about it in every aspect of our life, not just, as you say, for show at our work or for show in our family, that every part of our day becomes an act of kindness ambassador, that it becomes our new dendrite, our new habit, our new neural network pathway.
Mm-hmm. That's right, Linda. That's very right. And also, as we know too, kindness is one of the reasons we're happier, right? All these studies coming out on happiness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is it Sean Acker? Is that how you say his last name? Acker or Acker? The Harvard professor that everybody, the top class at the school, and talks about happiness, has a great TED Talk. Along with gratitude, meditation, and exercise, a random act of kindness leads to happiness, right? So you want a more productive workforce. You want a happier staff at a school. You know, if you're just looking at it altruistically, ultimately, if you create a kinder culture, everybody benefits.
Yeah.
Everybody benefits.
I think that's true.
You know, and I'm lucky enough when I go in that I, as a coach, right, I can talk to the leader as well, where on their level, how they're relating to this. You know, I went into one school and someone said, well, we're happy to have you here, Stephanie, but just so you know, we don't really always get along with the principal. And I said, that's okay. I said, I get it, but you can't like every leader you have. It's up to you how you handle it. So if you want a kinder culture, how kind are you being, even if you don't like the principal?
Yeah,
right?
Beautiful.
And I got to talk to the principal. She was wise enough to take feedback on how her actions, how she was. She had explained a story about a staff member and what they did wrong. And I said, actually, they did something nice for you. So why are you criticizing what they gave you? Oh, well, but they shouldn't have, you know, this isn't school policy. And I said, but they did a kind of for you. So as a leader, how are you sharing these acts of kindness? How are you walking the walk? Exactly what Linda says, right? And that's my opportunity and privilege if a leader is open enough to hear that, right?
I love how you say that's a privilege. It's a privilege to hear, to be part of that. Beautiful.
Right. Rosie, it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All of you, right? And just talk about this topic, it's a privilege.
Yes.
Right?
And it's calming. I think when people are based around that environment, your life is so much calmer. You don't have to think about how you're going to react or judge somebody. All you think about, because it's part of your neural network, is how can you be kind to that person. And then you start, I found myself giggling, you know, just you'll hear people say things and I'll giggle because I think it's been such a long time since I even thought how negative that was. You know what I mean? So it's very calming, which of course is brilliant for your health. So if you want a happy, calm life, this is brilliant. It's just think, how can I make somebody else's life a little bit better today, this hour, this minute?
Right.
Well, and we also have to remember kindness to ourselves, because when we're kind to ourselves, it's much easier to be kind to others. And I think we need to give ourselves permission to be much kinder to ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I feel that, because we're coming to the end, I feel that we all need to share some acts of kindness as examples, so that the viewers, you know, have another way to get in touch with what kindness feels like and looks like. So I'm gonna give a couple of examples. The first one that comes to mind is I noticed that every time I went into the break room for weeks, everybody's arguing about who used my creamer for coffee out of the refrigerator. And it's like an ongoing argument. So people people wrote their name on the bottle, and there was only one bottle, but whoever bought it put their name on it. So what I did is I just went out and bought a bottle of creamer, and I kept buying it every week, and I couldn't care less who uses it. You know what I mean? I just let everybody know, here's the creamer, have at it.
Right.
So I feel and I did it because it made me feel good, and I felt that this will stop the argument. And it did. I mean, everybody they were going after each other's throats. All right, who used my creamer today? And I'm going like, what the heck? Why do we need to go there? So it took care of all of that, and primarily, the other example I wanted to give you is like things in the kitchen or people leaving a mess. Instead of me complaining or bitching about it, I'll just clean it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily tell anybody that I did it because it's not important. But I just do it because I feel that it needs to be done, and I'm here. It might as well be me since I'm here, and take care of it and move on. It takes me 30 seconds and it's over. And it makes me feel good, and I don't have to tell anybody that I did it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That is kind. You're a kind person, though, Steve. You're very kind. You are.
Thanks. So, do you ladies have some examples for our viewers?
Well, I yield to everyone when I drive, and I allow everyone to go in front of me at the grocery store, and I feel much kinder stepping back and allow others to go in front of me in almost every situation, and that feels really good to me. So,
well, I'm glad that you're not you're not living in New York, because you wouldn't get anywhere ever.
you know, I have to tell you something. I was just in New York visiting, and that worked quite well there also.
Oh, it did?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yes, it did.
I'm willing to be wrong.
Because when you step aside and allow others to go in front of you, it creates a flow. Yeah. It really does. It really, it just creates a whole other different traffic pattern for everything. So, yeah.
Awesome.
And Jamie, I really want to acknowledge, I mean, you have a graciousness about you in your presence. And so you know, when you talk about that allowing others to go, I see that as part of your grace. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Lovely. Yeah. Lovely. All these nice stories. It's lovely to hear, right? Really. Reminds
We're
you.
not even you directing us. Isn't that nice?
Right. Linda, I'd love to hear yours.
Well, at Christmas time, I had a dream that I would have Christmas at the beach. And I know that's really weird for most of the people watching this show in the minute of Christmas. The middle of winter. But out here, it's very hot. And either side of Christmas Day, the weather was not very good. And I just put it out to the universe and said, I need a really nice day on Christmas Day. I would like to bring whoever would like to come to the beach. I would like to cook all the food, and then put it out there and say, whatever you want to bring, knock yourself out, and I'm not attached to who comes and I'm not attached to who doesn't come. And my brother found it challenging because all his kids and their partners came from all different, people came from everywhere. It was really phenomenal. Over 20 people, because it wasn't like what we call an on-year for our Christmas. It was 20 people from the family showed up. Including my son and his wife and my brother and my sister and another brother and his wife and all their family. They all showed up at the beach, and we had the most special time. And my sister and I did 2 solid days of cooking and making amazing food with a lot of love in it. And we just took 2 loads to the beach to deliver it. We just put it all out on the table and said, "This is yours. Merry Christmas."
Lovely.
It was awesome. Fabulous.
Yeah,
absolutely
that's wonderful. What a great day too. I bet it just was an amazing day.
And we thought of everything. There's a table tennis table at the beach that the council has built. So we bought table tennis bats and balls so people could go over and play that if they wanted to. The beach was literally lapping at the grass, so from where we were. My brother bought a shade, and he went down early and set up the shade. So everyone started being really kind because we were being really kind. And
Nice.
it was wonderful. Really loved it.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love hearing these stories of kindness.
What
How about you, Steffi?
I'm going to share. I'm going to share.
You're not going to get off the hook there.
I'm not going to get off. I like to share about other people. So I like to do anonymous one. Rosie, you were talking about, even though I share kind acts because I want to promote it and promote the ripple effect, I like to do anonymous acts sometimes. So sometimes my daughters and I will make cookies or cupcakes and drop them off. And I met a 92-year-old neighbor last summer who was on her own, a very fiercely independent, lovely woman, just walking by and remembering that my grandmother used to have me go visit my elderly neighbors down the street. And now we've become friends with the girls, and she's going to come over for Shabbat dinner.
Nice.
Tonight, this Friday, I'm calling her tomorrow, and hopefully she'll be a friend. It's just as nice for me as it is for her, our friendship, right? Somebody in the neighborhood in our busy, modern, technological, connected world, we're not often as connected to our elderly neighbors or the people in our neighborhood. And then I'll tell you quickly, a gentleman I interviewed, he lost a friend to the streets. He was just like any of us, and he went to a downward spiral and ended up homeless and died. And this man decided to take a picture, document some of the homeless. And he met a man, and he said, "What's your name?" And the man said to him, "Nobody's ever asked my name in 20 years. And he said, "Well, that's it. I'm going to start a homeless project, and it's called I Have a Name. And if you look on the internet, you'll see it." And he has a t-shirt called Let's Be Better Humans. And he inspires me to now stop the homeless I give money to and ask their name. So that's what I'd like to do, kind. Once again, right?
Giving dignity to people.
Yeah. Rosie, giving dignity. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Awesome. So, thank you. Guess what? It's over. Minutes. Steffi Black, thank you so much for being on Living Consciously TV.
Yes,
we really
thank
appreciate you bringing how to be kind, not just to this TV show, but also to the network and to the world. I don't think we can have enough kindness. So thank you so much, and you are absolutely a representative of kindness because I can feel it.
Yes.
I'm learning. I don't know if I'm learning. Thank you very much. All of you. I've had the privilege of meeting Linda before, and it's a pleasure and honor to meet all of you that gave me space to share and learn as well. So all the best to all of you.
Awesome.
Right back at you.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for the cast. Amazing show again, as usual. Thank you for being so 100% engaged throughout the entire viewers. This is actually our first show of the new year. It's a new season, and the more you watch this show or you watch any other shows on our network, including all of the Living Consciously TV show episodes, the more you watch them, the more they get up to the top 10. We announce them now at the end of every month, and if it makes it up to the top 10, it has the possibility of going to public television as well as onto this new social television network that we're going to be talking about later on. And thank you very much for watching, and keep coming back and learn with us because we're learning ourselves every day. Thank you. I love you all.
Love
And
you.
we'll see you here next
Big
week.
hugs,
Same place, same time.
blessings. Nice to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a great night. Good night.
Bye-bye.